everybody. It is your good buddy here, Philtastic Phil, and I'm joining me tonight for 7-minute stories is Mr. Brian LCS, the man, the myth, the legend. We're here again for another installment of 7-minute stories where we're going to see if Brian can tell his collecting story in 7 minutes or less. And we're not going to get started yet, though. We've got to, of course, wait for some of our friends here to join us. Right. If you're here in the chat, of course, sound off. In the meantime, Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Doing well. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate you to, be part of the 7-minute stories.
Yeah, I appreciate you being up to the challenge and taking some time to do so. I'm just kind of surprised. There's a lot of people who like, oh, wow, this is such a great idea. I couldn't do that. Here's one of them now. Here's Neil actually is checking in. Neil, we're going to get you on this soon.
Yeah, Neil likes to talk.
He does. I've been loving his music reviews, not so much because of the music themselves, but I just love when he's reviewing somebody else's top 20 and he doesn't like the song. It's just like, oh, this is rubbish.
Yeah, his list was pretty interesting, if I remember. I've seen a few others, so it's some interesting picks. Like you hear a song, or and you're like, wait a minute, I wouldn't think that song was somebody's favorite.
Well, I just like there was some song, I forgot what it was. I think it was some country song, and it was something. Neil, you got to help us out because I'm just going to butcher it. It was something like, I want to say like with help from my friends. Like, well, you don't have any friends if you're listening to this song.
The Richard Cheese one that you brought up, well, that was a good surprise.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. And you know what? It's the kind of thing. Hey, Beckerman's here. He's the kind of guy that it's either you know him or you have no idea.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, no, I've been listening to him for years, and my buddy and I went actually to his show. I guess like 2009 at this point. I think it was at Hammerstein.
Okay.
What I know, one of them is not around anymore. Whatever the one is still around, that's where it was. And my buddy that went with me, he's like 6.5 feet tall, and he's like a pretty heavy guy. So you could see him out of a crowd. And at one point in the show, I think when he was doing Down with the Sickness, Richard Cheese comes down into the audience, and he like grabs me, who's like the opposite, just like very short, and my friend who's just a giant, and he like has us in a kick line with like 4 other random like big dudes.
So is he? I haven't. Is he still making music? Does he still do covers?
Oh, he still does. Yeah, sometimes.
Okay, I gotta check it out because
too much. Yeah,
I'm trying to think. The album I have from him was, probably 15, 20 years ago. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this: they're not all gems.
All right.
You might be better looking for some singles, but I think he's kind of gotten more attention now for working a lot with Zack Snyder.
Okay.
He's been on. Yeah, he's had his music in. Was that zombie one where they're in the mall?
Okay. I know what you mean. I don't remember the movie. I remember the movie. I don't remember the title. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to say there was one other big movie, and then in Batman Superman, the scene where Lois is coming down the escalator, and the guy who's going to be KGB Beast, kidnaps her. You can hear his song.
Oh, okay. That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's definitely a I think acquired taste.
Yes, that's a good word for it. Yeah. My wife and I used to be involved with the Elks by us, and I was in one year I was in charge of my lodge, and like you go to the bar there at night, it's usually the crowd is gone by like 7. It's not a public place, so
right.
If you remember, so they just let us like plug in at that point just my iPod and play whatever, and I actually had started to get like a Richard Cheese like fan club basically going there.
That's funny.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had it playing in my car from an iPod, an iPod, and my kids were in the car, and we came across a song. I forget the cover, but they knew the song, but they were like, "Wait a minute, this isn't the artist that sings this song."
He
So that's how they got introduced to
and I'll say this: some of his versions
Trev.
I almost like better than the originals. Um, I like Bookworm is here too. Hey Trev, hey Bookworm. Um,
Naman.
I like his he does a Kanye song. I can't think of the top of my head. I like that better than Kanye's.
Oh, that's
Same thing with he does a little bit of Radiohead's what is it called?
is it
Airbag.
Oh, okay.
Kenneth is here too. Now, for our chat, this is not going to be a one-on-one, so get your questions ready because at a certain point, you're going to be able to ask Brian some questions, of course, a little bit later on. And I'm sure that my wife is going to text a couple questions and probody about
nice.
asking you how to organize comics because I am very unorganized at the moment. But let's see here. All right. Well, why don't we begin? Are you ready for the challenge, sir?
I am ready.
Okay. I think at one point I'm going to see if somebody wants to be an official timekeeper, but in the meantime, your 7 minutes starts now.
I'm on the clock.
You're on the clock. Go right ahead.
So, how I started collecting comic books. So I think I said recently when I was talking to somebody on my channel that I don't actually remember when I picked up my first book. I don't have any memory or recollection of, my first comic book, those type of things. But I was introduced, my first memory of superheroes was the Adam West Batman. And I watched that in reruns as a kid, and I wanted all the toys, Mego toys. I had Batman figures, all of the villains, and then I had the Spider-Man. So I used to watch that Adam West show and play with the action figures. Whoever Batman was fighting that week or that episode, I would sit there with my action figures. But I remember when I got a little bit older, at some point, in a convenience store, 7-Eleven, I stumbled across comics, found Spider-Man, and then started, reading Spider-Man books. And we lived close to kind of a 7-Eleven and like a strip mall, not, a 4 or 5 store strip mall. And so I had access to comics at 7-Eleven, and there was the old stationery store that had a big magazine rack. So I would pick up books there anytime I would go in. I had no clue what frequency they were published. I would go in and look at the books, whatever was there, I'd pick up. And then eventually I had some friends who were into comics. Luckily, growing up, I had 2 or 3 friends that were into comics too. And then I started to learn a little more. Then I found a local comic shop and picked up books there. And I was really lucky. Similar, like I said, where I lived, I was close to this little 7-Eleven and strip mall. There was also a Holiday Inn. And then every couple months, they would have a comic book show at the Holiday Inn that I was able to walk to. And so then I started picking up more books. At one point in my neighborhood, somebody a couple blocks over was having a comic book sale. And the guy probably had 100 long boxes. He was a big time collector. And I was able to picked up the Wolverine limited series probably for like $10. And it just kind of grew. I always seemed to find a way to be able to pick up books. And like I said, having friends that were into it too. One of my friends and his older brother were into comics, and they really enjoyed Thor and Fantastic Four. And at the time, I believe John Byrne was on the Fantastic Four run, and I wasn't reading or collecting Fantastic Four, but they were showing the art of John Byrne, and then got me hooked onto John Byrne and his artwork. And I started collecting Fantastic Four. And so, and then once I was able to drive, I was able to take myself to the comic shop, and started picking up books, monthly. So that's really how it, continued. And I probably collected till I was like 19 or 20 and then fell out of it and only came back to it, in the last really 2 or 3 years. And it's really changed. There was no grading, there were no variant covers, there were it was a lot different when I initially collected in the 80s compared to now. Um, but a little bit of a learning curve when I got back in, but YouTube has helped me along the way. And now I'm pull list and going to the comic shop every week, and that, and right back into it. So I think I'm done. I think I'm under the 7 minutes.
Oh wow, you are under the 7 minutes. Wow, I think that's the first. I want to say this is probably like, I'm gonna say you have like 2.5 minutes to go. So
Oh
wow,
wow.
I think that's the record. If only I wrote these things down.
Yeah, I was trying to be concise.
Yeah. All right. So, wow, went through the timer. Yeah, it's wow. So a couple things I picked up on. Like many, you said that you started really collecting through a convenience store, through a 7-Eleven. And I couldn't help but think when you said that, how many of us, our first experience going to a comic books, well, buying a comic, I should say, was not at a traditional store. It was at a convenience store or like a greeting card store or something like that, or a
Right.
pharmacy. Um, yeah, Matt is saying he expected you to go the full 7 minutes. um, yeah, keeping that in mind, I'm kind of surprised that maybe Marvel or DC didn't. I guess now that they're part of bigger parent companies, they could probably afford to do it, but just kind of like say, hey, let's, I don't know, see if we could buy some space in a convenience store. Maybe they buy their own convenience store.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. I think in the local my 7-Eleven that I go to, pretty regularly. I don't even think they have a magazine rack anymore, right? It's just they have newspapers, but that's about it. They don't. The magazine rack probably over the last 5-6 years has gone away. I mean,
Yeah,
drugstores still do. Um, and anytime I'm in an airport, there's obviously magazines or reading material, but there's not many places that actually have, that traditional, magazine rack. You really have to go to a, specialty store now.
yeah. I mean, I'll say this: it's been a while since I've been in a 7-Eleven, but I remember as a kid going in almost every Friday night after our soccer games. It was, let me grab a Slurpee and then just look at the magazine rack and usually grab like a video game magazine or a comic or something.
Right.
But yeah, it didn't really occur to me that that's just not there anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The real estate is it's something else now. It's not, I mean, like I said, I know some of the drugs, Walgreens, CVS, they still have a magazine rack. Um, and I know like around like fantasy sports, baseball, football, there's a lot of magazines that are sold as well,
Mm.
like fantasy sports magazines. But if I ever find a magazine rack, I always look to see are there any comics, and yeah, of course
Yeah.
there's none.
And you know what? It's kind of strange too, because those stores like your CVS and your Walgreens or whatnot, who used to carry or have these big robust styles of magazines, it's just now it's like maybe down to
Oh
that
yeah,
big. It's
yeah, little
tiny.
section, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about it now. The only other places I've actually seen comics outside of a comic book store, at least in the last few years, I think has been like a Barnes and Noble. But you're talking trade paperbacks there. You're not talking. Oh, I think they had a couple floppies too.
Okay, yeah, I know
Yeah.
they used to carry because I know Barnes and Noble because my daughter growing up was a very avid reader, and so we would go to Barnes and Noble quite often to pick up novels, and she read manga, and I remember them having still a pretty big, but this is probably 10 years ago, a pretty big magazine rack with comics and any magazine that you wanted, but um, I don't know if that's still true today.
Yeah. So Neil just said Books a Million stopped selling comics.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, we
Oh,
don't
and
have any here
22 said that
in
too.
Northeast. There's really no Books a Million, right?
Yeah,
So
I'm jealous every time I hear Matt or somebody go, "Oh yeah, I went to Ollie's," or even in like
yeah,
comic book Facebook groups where it's like, "Oh yeah, I'm finding these gigantic, key books for
yeah.
pennies on the
Ollie's
dollar." Yeah,
second and Charles is another one that I hear about a lot. Yeah,
and I mean, I don't think you and I are too far from each other. I'm in North Jersey. I think you're on Strong Island.
Long Island. Yep, yep.
Yep. And the
Yeah, there's no. I
yeah,
think there's an Ollie's upstate in New York, but there's no, none near us. I mean, other than Walmart and the Marvel DC packs, that's really the only other, it's a comic book shop or Walmart
Yeah,
potentially.
and here's the thing as far as Walmart goes too. I have never found any at my Walmarts. I don't know if they're getting cleaned out before I get there, or mine just don't carry it. And you have to understand that for me to go to one of the Walmarts near me, there's two that are pretty close to us. I try to just get stuff delivered as much as I can because it's like I always either feel like I'm going to get into a fight or I get into a fight, and I'm not that kind of guy at all.
I
It's
went out last Thursday. I was off from work and I had to do some errands and I had to go pick up something at Target. Specifically at Target, there was something we needed and I knew they had it, so I was out. So I said, "I'll go get it." I said, "Oh, well, I'm here. Let me go look at the cards and see, see what they have." And even just looking for the specific item I went there for, I felt like I was lost. Like it took me an extra 20 minutes and I finally had to stop and ask somebody where this item would be because I don't really go into stores like that much anymore. And so we do a lot of, other than grocery shopping, most of the stuff we buy is done online. And so it was like I'm walking around the store like this shouldn't really be taking me this long, but I don't go there that often. So it was like I had to like figure out the experience again and figure out, it's finally, like I said, I just asked somebody. And I actually looked for the cards, and this Target happened to have, usually the cards are like by the last aisle of the checkout.
yeah.
But this Target actually did away with that, and they put them in like on an end cap in like the toy section. And so that took me a little extra. So they really slimmed down the card section as well. So it
Mm.
was interesting. But I do have one Walmart that typically has the packs, but you have to get them. Like I hit it one morning on like a Monday morning, and there was really nobody in the store, and they may have just restocked them, and so there was both a lot of Marvel and DC. I went back to the same Walmart last week, and there was only a handful of DC packs and no Marvel books at all. So
Mm. Uh, yeah, I think I just have to make it a point maybe one day if like I'm off from work or something just to jump in. I was clicking on some random comments. I saw 22 weighing in and I think Durs. Um, yeah, I got to tell you, one of the things I've done, and specifically in Walmart, like I think to me at least, this is the big difference between trying to buy comics at Target or trying to buy something at Target and trying to buy something at Walmart. You go to Target and 9 times out of 10, like, oh yeah, here, it's right over here. Walmart, it's either they don't know and they say, oh, I don't know. Or I've had the experiences where they just tell you like the wrong thing. But yeah, I mean, I've gone throughout, and there's like a big Walmart by us. I've gone throughout it. Either they don't have it, or it's cleared out, or they're hiding it, or all three. Yeah.
most of the times I've seen it located, like I said, at the end of the checkout, like one of the aisles within the checkout. They usually have a shelf with cards and any of the comic stuff. I've seen it a few times in a Walmart where it's like behind the counter, so you have to ask somebody for it.
Hmm,
Um,
that's strange.
but yeah, that's usually where I've seen it. But I've seen others go do a video as Slim Comics and More. Sean usually does it where he's out doing a hunt, and um, there's stuff all over the place. Like there's like Target has like a collector's aisle where you might find the Funko Pops. Then there's an action figure aisle, and then the cards are located somewhere else. So it's like it's like a scavenger hunt. It's spread out across the
Yeah,
stores. So
and trust, I'm jealous of these people who could find it. Look, even if there's no keys in them, 22. I highlighted you. Correct me if I'm wrong because I watch too much YouTube. Do you get? I think you get. Do you get packs and does he open them with his wife? I think
yes,
I've
yeah,
seen.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
good, good.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I've just started doing like a deep dive into it. You know how YouTube is. There's a million different videos, and every so often I'll catch a name or somebody I see commenting on. I'm like, all right, I have to watch their stuff and take a deep dive. And I took a deep dive into his stuff recently, and I was like, I wish I could do that. But I'll say this: it's been a while again, but we used to find them at Five Below,
Oh,
just like a
okay. Yeah,
couple of
yeah.
packs. And my wife would go in and with me, and she was a master at somehow just like lifting up the comic inside the plastic, and I would take a look and be like, all right, yeah, no, I know that one. That's good. That's good. Yeah, you didn't find any huge ratios or anything like that in it, but I filled in some holes.
Yeah, that's yeah. There's a new Five Below that just opened near me, and I was thinking of going in to see what they have, to see if they have any comics.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since I've been inside of one. The last time I was there, they had a lot of like the I think early Marvel, Star Wars, not of the more recent runs, I should say. Nothing.
Okay,
Yeah,
like the High Republic stuff.
not just like the main. Was Jason Aaron writing it at first, or
Don't know.
yeah,
Trev will know.
yeah, Trev, weigh in. Let me see. Oh, I thought theirs was coming in with something on Walmart. It was something else, a mystery pack, I think. Uh, but we were talking before the camera started about switching gears, of course, about New York Comic Con. So you're all geared up and going for Thursday, I think you said?
Yeah, just Thursdays. I'm off Thursday, Friday, and when I took the time off, I didn't realize Monday is Columbus Day, so I'll have like a 5-day weekend. But I'm just going for one day. I got the ticket for one day. I figured, I don't. That way, it will limit my budget.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm there multiple days, I'll probably end up spending more money than I should be spending. So figured one day, and I've heard that typically Thursday, the first day, is um, not as crowded. And I know there's still tickets available for Thursday, so they didn't sell out. They've sold out Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So yeah, I'm looking forward to. My goal is to kind of. There's a couple exclusive books I want to pick up. Some nice Spider-Man covers. I think the Comic Mint has a few Spider-Man, and I think there's a Miles Morales that I want to pick up. And then there's some other books that I'm trying to fill. I'm focused right now on some Miles Morales runs. There's about 9 books I need to pick up.
Mm.
So if I can find them at a good price, I'll probably if they're available, I'll pick them up. But I really want to now that I know Reggie collects and Doug will be there signing copies of Isolation. I have that. I want to go meet them and get Isolation copy signed. And then really there's a lot of other YouTubers that are going. So I'm hoping to meet. I think Joe's in the chat.
Yeah,
Anaconda
Joe's.
Comics. He's going, so I'm hopefully going to catch up with him. And there's a bunch of other YouTubers, DJ Links, Comics with Bueller, couple comics will be there. There's a bunch of the community going, so just hopefully going to catch up and meet some of our fellow YouTubers.
Yeah,
So.
to be honest with you, I haven't gone since. I got to look at that poster I showed off upstairs. I want to say like 2010, maybe.
Okay.
And like for me, it was like, okay, maybe it was fun. I went to that, but I think like the last time I went, maybe I spent 10% of the time on comics, and the rest of the time, like just trying to get pictures with TV and movie people. And I had kind of written it off as, oh, that was fun. It was just a little too crowded. It was like a long day because the last time I went was when they didn't have any of like the special reservations online for guests or anything like that. You had to like be there when the doors opened, basically to get a ticket. And I got there at like 4:30 in the morning, and I was like the 8th person in line. But I wanted to get a ticket to meet Stan Lee.
Oh, okay.
And my thought was, he was older at the time. He's not going to be around that much longer. It's probably like a now or never type of thing. But yeah, I mean, this is the first year I'm kind of like, I wish I was going. Only because, if anything, just to hang out with fellow YouTubers.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been several times, but any time that I've gone previously, I was not collecting, so I didn't even spend any time in the comic side. I went a few times with my kids, and they dressed up, they cosplayed, and we went and saw some of the video game stuff and some of the other cosplayers, things like that. But I don't. If I spent 5 minutes in the comic area, that was probably a lot of time. So this is really the first time I'm going, and I'm going by myself, so I don't have to worry about with the kids. I mean, my kids are older now anyway, but um, so I'm really just kind of, like I said, focused on, there's a couple things I want to hit. Like I said, the exclusives, isolation, meeting Reggie and Doug, and then just meeting, the rest of the community that's there. So
Yeah. Speaking of Doug, he popped in here like Beetlejuice. He said his name 3 times, and he joined us.
there
So
he is.
Doug, Brian's going to be coming to say hi on Thursday, and
Yes,
hello to
looking
Shop. I
forward to it.
saw Shop jumped in here as well. Yeah, I mean, when I went to, it was like, I think they were just starting exclusives because I remember, I know I still have it somewhere, like a sketch cover of, I think they did an Iron Man Doctor Doom crossover.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, now to be honest, it almost sounds like a different con altogether than when I went.
Yeah, I was looking at the floor plan today, and just kind of trying to get a sense for, where are the comic vendors and some of the comic, and it's pretty spread out. Marvel has a big booth, big setup, and so does, believe it or not, Marvel. Whatnot is probably just a little bit smaller than Marvel's
Really?
space, at least from the map, the floor plan that I looked at. So that, I thought that was interesting. I was like, wow, Whatnot you know must have a lot of money, because their booth is just almost as big as Marvel. So
Well, maybe they're going to do something like that. At San Diego, didn't they have like some of the more prominent Whatnot people doing live auctions, like they had
yeah,
little
I think so. I
spaces?
think
Yeah,
it's kind of like a live auction, because I know Marvel in previous years, they almost had a stage, I think, within their booth where they were doing some presentations. They have some other panels, but they were doing some live stuff like right from the show floor. So
yeah, yeah. I kind of remember. I think they had like a dais the last time I went, almost just like a
yes, yeah, yeah,
table. Yeah, like you could go right down the line and have stuff signed. That was pretty cool.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
there's a number of shops, Midtown Comics. There's a number of vendors that will be having artists there to sign. So it definitely looks like there's going to be a lot of opportunity to spend money, but pick up books and and get autographs and things like that. So
yeah. I think Midtown is having Peach.
yes,
If
I
I
think
saw that
she's
right, yeah,
there over the weekend. I think she might be there on Saturday.
yeah. Uh,
So
Matt was complimenting, by the way, Mr. Matt Woods. Hold on.
Matt Woods.
Yeah. Matt was complimenting your Spider-Man eye poster back there. It occurred to me, I have one similar. I really have to I have a bunch of prints that I have to frame or something at one point. My dad bought it for me when he went to Italy with my stepmom a couple years ago, and it had the Colosseum in his eye. I feel like it's
Oh wow.
yeah, yeah. So it looked like very similar to that one.
Yeah. So that poster in the back there, that was done by an artist in New York City on the street in about 10 minutes with spray paint.
Wow.
And we didn't ask him. I think I was wearing a Spider-Man shirt when we were walking around, so we didn't ask him specifically to do Spider-Man. I guess he saw the shirt and he just did it, and we were like, "Oh, okay." And we bought it. It was like I said, all done spray paint, and he's flipping the paper around, and like at first you really couldn't make out what he was doing, and then at some point you're like, "Oh, okay, that's Spider-Man," and he's got a reflection in his eye, and it kind of really came together. So
Mm, that's cool. Doug is saying that Thursday noon to 1 he'll be at booth 3437.
yeah, I
And
have it.
just
I have a note. I'll be there.
yeah. Now I guess talking a little bit about you saying that you started really collecting with Spider-Man, and I had always assumed, I'm guessing maybe from a couple of the pictures and the bedspread behind you, that you were a Spider-Man fan. I guess, is that your favorite?
Yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what it was? I've told this before. It's growing up. Once I got introduced to superheroes, like I said, Batman, Adam West Batman was probably the first introduction, and then I discovered Spider Man, and the fact that growing up on Long Island, only I'm in Suffolk County, 2 counties over from Queens. When I realized Spider Man's backstory, as a 5-year-old kid, I said, all right, he lives not that far from me, and he swings around New York City. I could go into the city and visit, maybe see Spider Man. That was what I thought as a young kid, and so that's how the connection with Spider Man. Because he was somebody that I thought I could actually go meet or go see swinging around New York City. I was hooked. So,
Yeah.
and he's been my favorite character, really ever since.
And I think that's something that I know. I've seen interviews before. Oh, Eman has joined us as well as Gary B.
Nice.
Eman, I don't know why I just decided to go exotic Eman.
Iman.
Yes, it's been a long day. That was something I know. I've seen a few interviews in the past with Stan Lee where he said, I wanted to put them in New York City. I think he was talking more about Spider-Man than Fantastic Four, just so you had that exact experience that you're walking down the street and like, oh yeah, Spider-Man could have been there, the Thing could have been there, that type of thing.
Right.
And I mean, I have to say, whenever I do see a comic that has either recognizable place or a place near like where I grew up, I'm always like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. That's something that stands out to me. I remember during World War Hulk, just one of the countless like tie-ins that are just there. There was a scene that they were at a military base, I forgot, a Nike base,
Okay.
actually in the town next to where I grew up. And I remember
Okay.
saying, "Oh my God, this is awesome! This is right down Route 10."
Yeah, I mean, but my mom and dad supported the Spider-Man habit when I growing up. I mean, like all toys, birthdays, Christmas was always superhero. It was all hero until Star Wars. I had that kind of Toy Story moment where put the Woody away and went to Buzz. It was like I was up until like 78. I was all in on superheroes, and then it was put that stuff away, and then in came all the Star Wars stuff. But I got to see. I'm trying to remember when we went to a breakfast at J.C. Penney's,
You said
and
breakfast at JC Penney?
yeah, it was like in their break room, the employees' break room, with Spider Man,
Oh wow.
and I won a autographed poster, Amazing Spider Man poster that hung on my wall for probably 15 years. And then I don't know if you remember a toy store in the Northeast, Play World.
No, no.
So they were a Northeast competition to Toys R Us, and they had a Spider-Man appearance there one day. Spider-Man and Green Goblin. My dad came home early from work, picked me up. It was because it was like 3 o'clock on a Thursday, and um, Spider-Man was going to be there and Green Goblin, and they were selling some new toy. It was like it was like a shield that you pulled and like a little spinner shot off on it. And so they're getting set up for it. And I'm standing in the aisle, waiting to see Spider-Man. And the PR woman who was there came up to me and said, "Hey, when Spider-Man comes out, can you let him know if you see anything, that's not right?" She wanted me to kind of tip him off to the Green Goblin was going to sneak up on him. And I was like, "No, I can't do that. Spider-Man has spider sense. He'll, he'll figure this out. He doesn't need my help." And so I blew up her plan. Um,
I
I think
just I want to see
some
that
other kid
lady.
yelled
Yeah.
at him to watch out for the Green Goblin, but I'm like, come on, he's going to figure this out.
I just like that. Like, no, what's wrong with you? He's Spider Man. He knows.
Yeah, like
Relax.
very very confident in Spider-Man's ability to detect the Green Goblin behind him. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so those were two things that I remember that my parents, because my mom took me to the breakfast, like I said, at J.C. Penney's, and I've since gone back and tried to do like a Google search to find out, because like I said, I was probably 5 or 6 years old, but I had vivid memories of the breakfast, but I don't remember like what the situation was, why J.C. Penney's did that. Were they trying to sell a Marvel line of clothes or toys. Who knows? But like I said, I've gone back to try to look up some information, and I can't find any information. So I don't know if it was just something the local pennies did by me
Yeah.
or what. So
I'm just amazed they were like, yeah, come in the break room. Just mean, it must have been nice. I worked at a Sears for 2 months in college. So I can't imagine like seeing the stuff I saw in the break room. Of course, you're
yeah,
talking like
I,
20
I
years
think
ago now. Yeah.
I think it was the break room because it was like the J.C. Penney's was in our local mall, and it had two stories. It had, you know, the second story, and we went up to like the third story, or some area that was not, the store. It was like a private area, and I'm pretty sure it was like the lunch room or the break room for the employees that
Oh
they
wow,
had the breakfast set up. So
that's very interesting. But you know what? I really like that you pulled from there, and I think this kind of mimics part of my story, and I would imagine part of everybody else's story as well. It was that your parents supported it and encouraged it and took you to all these like great events and stuff like that too. Like I think back to as soon as you said it, I was thinking back to like when my dad would take us to comic book shows, and even he took me to my first big con. It was Wizard World in Philadelphia. They weren't in New York
okay.
that year in '93. But yeah, he just kind of brought me a rush of good memories.
Yeah. No, and I tried to do that with my kids. That's, like I said, we went to Comic Con a few times, and when the kids were much younger, there was at a Toys R Us, a local Toys R Us, Spider Man was making an appearance, and we took them there and got a picture with Spider Man. Um, so yeah, no, I tried to um, keep those traditions alive, from my parents now on with my three kids. So
The last show I went to, I brought my wife to. Um, it's Garden State Comic Fest, which they have around here every summer. It's actually a really good con. It's well balanced between comics and not. They have usually like a couple media guests, but like this past year, I really wanted to go, but still, anxious because of COVID. They
right.
actually had the actor who played Vigilante and the big guy with the beard from Peacemaker were
Oh,
there.
okay.
But yeah, I mean, they balance it between you could get a good array of comics, a lot of great artists and creators are there. When we went, when we were engaged, we saw Steranko. Um,
Oh, wow.
he sat and he was like talking to us for 15 minutes. I felt bad because people were waiting behind us. And a couple months ago, actually at the Bratton's comic book garage sale, Dave O'Hare, who runs the show, happened to be there. And I said, yeah, I felt bad. He's like, Steranko talks to everybody like that. And I remember Lee Weeks, we had a good conversation with. But what creeps me out, now, to each their own, I'm not a huge fan of cosplay. And this is like kind of why. There was a guy who had a dead on great Green Goblin cosplay, like you'd think you were looking at the Alex Ross painting. And yeah, when this was actually before we were married, this is when we were engaged. We were walking around, we're holding hands. We were like just engaged, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks at this point. And the guy kept following us, like, oh. And then at one point, like the first time, it was like, oh, that's great, wow. And then, like the third or fourth time, he was like, I'm gonna take you guys to a bridge or something. I was like, all right, creeping me
Yeah,
out a
that's
little
that's
bit now. Yeah,
yeah,
that's good. Go over there.
right.
Have a great one.
Yeah, that's a little strange.
Okay, so I'm going to start to open up our questions to the floor here. And right away, my wife has had a question that she texted in. She gets the spousal privilege here. She texted in actually a few minutes in. What drew you to comic? What drew you the most to comics, and why?
Like I said, that my introduction initially to superheroes was the Adam West Batman, and I fell in love with it. And so then finding books in the convenience store, and I started reading the Spider-Man stories and learning more about Spider-Man and his origin. And then it was, like I said, that it was the New York City, the local connection that really sucked me in. Um, and then I was just hooked on Spider-Man. I would pretty much only collected Spider-Man early on, and then with my high school, I had some friends, some high school friends, grade school, middle school and high school that also collected, that kind of helped me branch out beyond just Spider-Man books. But for me, like I said, it was really just the connection that I had because I lived so close to where the Spider-Man story took place that really drew me in, and the fact that he was an awkward teenager. I think we all go through that. In middle school, high school, we have those moments where we may not fit in, or it's just growing up, right? I think most of us go through those things. So
Mm.
that's what connected me, the proximity to where I lived and where Spider-Man lived, and just a connection of the storyline.
Let me ask you now. You hit on something with the connection just now, and I'm going to ask you a question before I make my observation. I'll tie myself into it. As an adult now, why do you still read Spider-Man?
Well, I still enjoy the story. When I got back into it, when I first, 2 or 3 years ago, when I started reading again, I was a little surprised that Peter Parker was still at the point where he was, 30 years ago. He was still, he's still having trouble paying the rent. He's struggling. He's living with roommates. So I missed the whole Parker Industries storyline. So I didn't really know that he had success at one point. So when I first started reading it, I was like, you would think after all this time that he would have
Mm-hmm.
learned something from some of his mistakes. But then, getting back into it and understanding he's had some ups and downs over the years that I wasn't reading. His story still hooks me. The great power, with great power, great responsibility. He's still just so committed to helping others, and just the ups and downs that he has with, his family, with his friends, with his love life. Those storylines still interest me.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you said that too, because I feel that with many major characters, I'm not currently reading Spider-Man, but that seems to be the main key, like the relatability. Like I read Spider-Man, I'm gonna say like from the early 2000s up until the end of Dan Slott's run. So
Okay.
just before you jumped back in, and yeah, for me it was just all right. I've kind of read enough Spider-Man. Let me take a break, and I'll still pick up an issue here and there. But the moments that stick out in my head the most are things like in Ultimate Spider-Man when they were focusing on. I remember the first time they had the classroom scene with Peter and Mary Jane just passing notes. I think Bendis personally went back to the well a couple too many times on that type of thing, but that's just my opinion. Um, Even before that, I remember in the right before the Superior Spider-Man story uh, when the change, I guess you could say, between Octavius and Parker
Right. And that's a
happened.
story. That's a story I haven't read, but I need to. It's on the to-do list to go back and read that.
Well, one of the things, this was like right before that storyline started, so you didn't know any of that went down yet. I forgot exactly why, but Peter had a revelation where he was like, it's time that I've grown up and act more mature and everything like that. And at the time, I was like, wow, that's just so great that he's going. Of course, not knowing that, well, he's been replaced by a super evil genius, but still, it hit home, and I think that's why Marvel has been able to kind of stay in the game so much. And I say that with Marvel, I don't go as deep with DC personally, but I feel like Marvel tends to try to go for more of the, this could be something going on in your life type of thing.
Right.
Whereas, yeah,
Right.
DC not so much.
Yeah. I mean, I probably know Batman the most. I've probably read the most material of Batman, and have seen. Obviously, there's been a number of Batman movies, but you know, I'm not a billionaire, and so
Mhm.
it's tough to relate to Bruce Wayne.
True.
So where Spider-Man was, well, here's a teenager from Queens, So that was a much bigger connection for me.
I've had a question up on the screen a while. I apologize,
Yes.
Iman, for the delay. Brian, in the comic book world, who would you have lunch with?
So are you meaning with the actual comic book character or with a artist or creator? I mean, if it's an artist creator, obviously, and he's passed, I would certainly have liked the opportunity to have met Stan Lee. I wish I was into collecting when I was at those previous Comic Cons, because it may have driven me to go meet Stan or get a signature. Um, I'm still trying to find my way back in of who my favorite artists and writers are. So I don't know if I really have one yet that I could say, oh, that's one that and I hear it from other community members like, oh, that's, Scott Snyder, whatever he writes, I'm going to read, I'm going to follow. But I don't think I have one coming back. I did really, McFarlane was I was blown away when McFarlane started drawing Spider-Man.
Mm.
Because it was just something totally different and, just totally different than what I had seen before. So McFarlane is one of my favorite artists, but John Byrne was another one of the artists that I really found through some of my friends. So he's an artist that I enjoy his work. But McFarlane probably is a current creator that I would love to meet and talk with.
Well, he's going to be at Comic Con. I don't know if he's there Thursday, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I think he has some signings and things. But that I thought about that. I'm not a big signature guy. I appreciate the creators, the writing, and the artwork, but I'm not at that point where I want to spend, because I'm only going to be at Comic Con for one day. I really don't want to spend time in line for an hour or two to get a signature
Mm-hmm.
for a particular artist, because I think I could use that time to go do other things, whether it's digging through comics or trying to catch up with some people from the community. So I'm really trying to be efficient with my time because I'm only going to be there for one day. So that's why I kind of just said, all right, no waiting in line, no
Mm-hmm.
signatures, because I'm trying to be as efficient as possible. So
That's smart. That's smart. I'll say this though: whenever you get an opportunity, if you have time, take a stroll around the artist alley. Of course, I'm not sure. I doubt McFarlane would be like this, but I had caught a couple creators the last time I went. Just nobody was sitting there, like they just got there or they just came
mm,
back from a break. And even if I just chatted with them, you never know. It's like a chance
yeah.
type of thing, I
No, I
guess.
did. I did go. I was at Terrific Con in Connecticut earlier this year over the summer, and I did kind of go through the artist. They had a small artist alley. John Romita Jr. was there, but he had like a really big line.
Hmm.
But I was able to kind of walk by where he was set up, and I could see him, drawing some stuff, and so it was good to see him saying like, "Wow, that's the guy who's currently drawing Spider-Man." So that was fun just to kind of see him. I got a little video of him, at his table, talking with some fans. So
Yeah,
it certainly interests me. I just, in the essence of time, I just don't want to, um, I don't want to spend. I don't want to just spend my time there at this point.
I can understand that. He's an artist I never met that I would like to. Uh, in the
Yeah,
back of my
he
head,
seemed
yeah.
like he was being very personable and chatting with people. So he seemed like he would be a good somebody enjoyable to meet.
In the back of my head, and this is going to sound like the silliest thing. I blame Wizard when they used to have the top 10 artists and everything, and I just always remember his headshot. He always had this like giant bright smile on it. So I always think of him like he's like the Van Halen of artists, just because of that. Like he's always just smiling. But I digress. We do have another question here from Neil. Brian, if Spider-Man was not such a thing, what superhero would you pick to read?
I think it would have to be Batman. I mean, I think Batman is quietly probably my second favorite, just because, and I mentioned it earlier, just because I've had so much history with him. Watching Adam West as a 5-year old, and enjoying that. Um, I think, and I'm back reading Batman now. I just started with Chip Zdarsky's pickup of Batman. I just started reading Batman and getting back into um, that book. The problem right now is there's so many Batman stories out there.
Oh
It's
yeah,
tough to figure out which stories you read. But I think if I'm either detective or Batman, I think the main story is probably a good place to start. And I've just picked up Batman, not detective yet, but a couple issues in, and I'm enjoying it.
yeah. Matt Woods has a recommendation for you. You need to
Conan,
read Conan. He said,
yeah, I mean, I've liked I enjoyed the Arnold portrayal in the movies, um, but I've never really read any. I've read a few issues here and there, but never consistently read Conan.
"Yeah, I haven't, but I have to say, looking at some of Matt's videos he had maybe a year or two ago, where he was, I think I could be wrong. I think he did like a read along with Conan, and then a little bit of Gary Beard. No, you know what? Matt's video was more on. I'm blanking on the name, the creator of Conan, and going into his backstory and everything. And then Gary B even talking about Conan. I was like, I can easily see how I could fall down this hole, but it's just I have to
Oh
focus
yeah,
the collection at this point.
no, Gary B does his little his shorts a day, one a day, where he's showing off the Conan cover, and he gives a little brief, review or synopsis of the story. And there are times when whether it's the cover artwork or just the information that Gary provides, that I'm like, wow, that sounds like something I'd be interested in. Um, so
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this: Conan does have some of the most badass covers, even before Wolverine and the Punisher had these badass covers. You always had these just great, fantastical Conan ones.
in any of the covers underwater, I'm hooked. Like he's battling some dragon or some crazy animal underneath in the water. I'm like, wow, that's a great cover.
Yeah, for me, I only have I think I have a few Conan books I have in my collection were actually given to me by my mom's uncle, who's no longer with us. And I think he just collected it at one point and was like, "Oh, here you go." And it's like a stack of five of them, but um, Matt's probably going to make me go look for them at some point. They're they're the bigger like magazine style ones, and just these great like painterly kind of covers. And this was before you had Alex Ross and Joe Jusko really putting out stuff. It stuck out to me as a kid, like, wow, this is something special.
Well, Marvel Team Up was one of the books that I collected, and I really enjoyed reading because it was typically it was Spider Man and then some other character, and so it was a good way for me to continue to read Spider Man, but then also get to know some other characters. So Marvel Team Up was one of my favorites because, like I said, I would get introduced to characters that I would not normally, I know about, but not really have ever really read. So you get to know them. So that was one of my favorite series. Um, like I said, because you got a glimpse into another character.
I was the same way when I was a kid in the '90s. Growing up, we had Marvel Comics Presents, and I'm talking about the older style where you had maybe a quarter of a story, and then you had to flip it over to read the other part of it. Like they
No,
split the
okay,
book in
yeah,
half, and that's how I got more familiar with Cable. I know 'cause for a while it was just you're either getting Wolverine or Ghost Rider or Wolverine and Cable. I think they kind of switched back and forth. But looking back, as I was trying to complete a run of those, I always look for those at some point. They really did do a good job of just throwing in, oh, here's Constrictor. Okay, why would I read a Constrictor story? Well,
right.
it's attached to a Wolverine story. Uh, Gary, Gary corrected me. Savage Sword of Conan. Okay. Matt agrees with them on Marvel
Marvel
Team
Team
Up.
Up, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Gary's leaving us. Good night, Gary.
Like
Okay, so we are almost an hour in. Do we have any other questions for Brian? Because
wow, that went quick.
I know. See, again, this is the longest 7 minutes on the internet. I, of course, would be remiss if I didn't mention, of course, Brian is the founder of the Comic Book Community Awards. Oh, see, we're sticker buddies now.
And I'll have some at New York Comic Con. So if you want one, come find me.
There we go. Even if you don't want them, just start tossing them at people.
Yeah.
But where did the concept, or I guess, what's the inspiration for the awards?
Well, when I came in, when I started watching YouTube, and eventually once I started my channel, one of the things that struck me was the amount of work and creativeness of the creators, the editing. I started to see people doing sketches. Freaky Louie is, in costume and dressing up as characters and making videos. And so I was like, wow, there's a lot of great work that's happening. Do we recognize anybody within the comic book community? And I had asked a few people and did searched, and there didn't seem to be any awards that I was aware of. And I later found out that I think somebody actually tried at one point and maybe had it for a year or so, and then it kind of died off. But I thought it would be a way to recognize the community. And I had come from, I used to have a blog. I ran a website, a blog for about 7 years. Totally different area. It was personal finance. My wife and myself and my family were getting our personal finances together, paying off debt and building a plan for our money. And so I had started a blog and was really really deep into the personal finance community. Very similar to the comic book community, very niche community, very strong community, very supportive of one another. And so I had given up the blog, and that's really what drew me back to comics, was that I needed something to do with my free time. And so I started started watching YouTube, and then started the channel and started really collecting again. And so when I realized that there wasn't any recognition that was happening, um, I borrowed the idea from the personal finance community, because the personal finance community had a similar. They had an awards that they would do yearly for the best blog, for the best um, podcast, different categories, but based on the community of personal finance people. And so I just borrowed that idea and said, well, why don't we do that for the comic book community on YouTube, and just help recognize, all of the channels and the creativeness within the community. And that's really how it started. And then really too, some of the early on, Gary B, the Grow Together, and the shout outs, and the the supportiveness of the community for one another. Really, I really thought, well, we could then take, leap off of that into the awards and just really have fun. I was really surprised at the reaction that some people had negatively when I first did it, because the goal is really, for me, is just to celebrate the community and highlight the community. So I was a little taken back that there were some people that didn't like it, or were negative towards it. But I can understand it. It is a competition. There's only one person that wins in a particular category, and so that I'm competitive. So I understand that if I was, if I'm nominated and I lose, I might be, I could be upset. Um, so, but the idea is really just to have fun and celebrate the community. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the goal. So,
And I think that that's definitely um, really the spirit of it. And I think that's pretty easy to see. Of course, you're going to have some people who find fault with it, of course. And I mean, hey, look, I'm nominated. I love the fact I'm nominated, and I'm looking at it, of course, and I'm like, yeah, I'm nominated. It's like, wow, I have 160 subscribers, and Reggie, who's in the top of the category, I think has like 14,000. I was like, okay, that's going to be a big mountain to climb. But
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
and and that was one of the criticisms from year one. So we tried to do some things with the tiers, but I mean, ultimately, because you have such a mix of channels that are a couple hundred to a couple thousand to 20,000. It's tough to be able to make it as fair as possible. But I think the fact that anybody who's nominated and then became a finalist should be proud of that
Yeah,
accomplishment because enough people within the community um, put their name down for them to be recognized. So
and I'm glad that you
I
said it.
think,
I was going to say that too. It's just that you know I could still look at it like, wow, I got nominated in the same category as Reggie,
what?
as 22, not 22. I'm sorry, he's not in my category. As TM. Uh, it's just I think if you're genuinely, my personal opinion, I'm not putting words in Brian's mouth. I don't think anybody here is going to take umbrage with that. But I think if you're genuinely a person who celebrates our little YouTube comic book community, I think you're just happy to see the names up there and you appreciate the great group of people we have in there.
Yeah, I would hope so. And
Yeah.
and I get it. Some people may not like awards and it may not be their thing. I've reached out to some channels and saying, hey, do you want to get involved? Can you help me support this? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
The award people have said, yeah, the awards aren't for me. And I understand that. So there are going to be some people that like it, some people that don't, and that's fine. Um, you know, ultimately, it's just like I said. I really want to just have fun and help celebrate. I'm hoping that this year, we're going to have a lot more involvement with other channels and people being presenters and giving awards away. So I'm really looking forward to the award show and just having a ton of community involvement and just having fun. So
Yeah. And
um,
that's what it's about.
yeah.
We do have another wife question that came in. She's
Oh.
got the direct line. Uh, and I guarantee you this is something more for me. How do you manage your comics after you are done reading them?
So what I do is I try to weekly or every 2 weeks. So my comics are stored in my basement. I have a finished basement. I have my comics down there. I have a little. It used to be the play area for the kids. Now that the kids are older, they don't use it anymore, and so it's my little man cave, I guess. But it's where we do the laundry, and my comics are there. But so what I'll do is I'm upstairs on the main floor. I read my books up here. When I'm done with them, I'll bag up, board them, and I bring them downstairs. And then at some point, I'll put them away in my short or long boxes. I have them organized by company. So I have an indie section, a DC section, and Marvel, and then I have each of those in alphabetical order. And so I try to make it a habit every no more than 2 weeks go down and put those books that I've recently purchased and read away so that they're sorted and in their box. Um, that's pretty much how I'll do it. It's nice to have a little bit of a in my house. Like I said, the basement is where they're stored. I read upstairs, and then I know once I'm done with this reading pile, I bring them downstairs. So it's kind of it's a good way for me to stay organized because I know if they're upstairs, I haven't read them yet. If they're downstairs, I need to put them away. So
Yeah. So you're good. You have a good system set up. Yeah. I have no system at the moment, but I'm learning. Oh, here's something from Trev. Master Madam, I have to tell you, I know that my wife does appreciate that comment. I can't hear her right now, but I know she's laughing.
and I
Trev,
do, by the way, I do the laundry, and I made dinner tonight. I do. I cleaned out the dishwasher when I got home from work. So, yes, I do. I do it all.
you know what? We kind of trade off on our household responsibilities. I do most of the laundry. I hate folding them, but I'll do the laundry mostly. Um, Cooking lately, she's doing a lot more cooking and dishes, I have to say, than me. When she was pregnant, I was doing all the cooking.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I like to jump in. My whole cooking expertise is on the weekends. I'll make breakfast or I'll buy breakfast. And our house, just like I've heard you mention on your house, Sunday is pancake day, so
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
throw it in there.
yeah. Breakfast is easy. I mean, my wife's a much better cook than I am, and I remind her of that. So I said, I can certainly cook tonight, but don't critique, how it tastes or how it comes out unless you want to cook. Then you can cook and you can make it the way you want to make it. But when I cook, I'm making it the way I want to make it.
There you go. There you go. 22. My organization method is very similar to yours. I'm not going to put up on the screen because my wife will laugh more. But Trev actually has a question. Do you use CLZ?
Not yet. So I have, I don't really have that big of a collection because I had 3 or 4 long boxes that I carried around with me since the 80s. And when I first got back in, I got back in to sell those books. So I sold a bunch of those books. And now I'm in the process of reacquiring some of those books and collecting going forward. So I probably have one, two, three. I mean, I probably have 2,500 comics. So it's, but I haven't taken the plunge yet on an app, which I need to do because I'm at the point now where I'm trying to fill a run and I'm keeping a spreadsheet of the books that I need. So, I have a Google Doc that I can look up, but it would be much easier to just have it in the app to be
Yeah.
able to keep track of it.
I
So,
mean, I'll say this. I'm assuming Trev is using CLZ. I have been using CLZ for about a year. I used a different app before that. It wasn't even an app. It was just predates apps. It was just a different kind of program. And I have to say, I do enjoy CLZ. I have a rather large collection I'm still trying to organize. And as soon as I do, it's going to be whittled down a little bit. But I like the fact that it's stored on my phone. They also store a lot of information in the cloud.
right,
And you could just take a book and scan the barcode and add it to your collection.
right,
Yeah, like anything else, there's a little bit of a training wheels type of situation with it. But I'll say this too: they have very good support in the form of their Facebook group. The developer, the guy who's in charge of it, I don't know what his title is very active in that. And they actually just today is the launch date.
yeah, with Cover Price, right? Is it
Yeah,
Cover Price?
yeah, because they were with another company at one point, and then I don't know what happened, but they stopped talking to each other basically.
Okay.
I haven't done the CLZ the Cover Price rather integration yet. I kind of want to wait a month or two just see how it shakes out first, then I'll jump into it. But people seem to be enjoying it.
Yeah, so I mean, I plan to use it at some point because I have to do it soon because at some point I'll have so many comics. I mean, as I continue to collect forward, I don't want to get too far behind if because then scanning all of those books would take a long period of time. So I need to do that soon.
I'll say this though, because I've gone through the point where I actually rescanned almost everything in my collection. When I went officially over to CLZ, just the new program just didn't carry over. The other program I was using didn't carry over. It's very easy. You have a phone. You're able to read the thing, the I can't think of the name of it. The barcode. Yeah, it's very easy. You can
Yeah, no,
scan.
I definitely need to take the plunge and do that.
Yeah. Master and Madam came in with a question. Do you actively purchase giveaway books or are they PC downgraded issues?
I'm purchasing. I don't like I said when I initially got back in, I mainly had Amazing Spider-Man run, and I sold a bunch of those books because my initial coming back into collecting wasn't really collecting; it was selling, and I really had no intention of collecting. But I came to YouTube to figure out how to ship a comic book because I started to list on eBay and sell on eBay. So when I made my first sale, I'm like, oh damn, I need to be able to pack this properly so it doesn't get damaged in shipping. And so that's how I came to YouTube. I did a search how to pack a comic book, how to ship a comic book, and that led me into the rabbit hole of YouTube. And so, but I sold a bunch of my key issues: Amazing Spider-Man 252, Spider-Man 300, Spider-Man 361. There was a bunch of books that I sold that I wish I wouldn't have, and they were all raw books. I didn't have any graded books. So now when I do giveaways, I really don't. Anything that I have in my PC, I really want to keep. So I'll go out and purchase, or if I know there's some hot book, I might pick up a couple extra copies, or a variant cover, an exclusive, something like that,
That's
for
cool.
giveaways. So
Now, let me ask you, with repurchasing your PC, building that PC back up again, how was your approach? Was it, these are books I wish I still had, or were you looking beyond that?
Well, I mean, I would like to have the complete run of Amazing Spider-Man, right? So 1 to 800. Um, but I started collecting forward, right? So I jumped in probably issue 35, 40 of the Gleason run of Spider-Man. So I had to go back and collect issues 1 through 35, and so I have that complete Gleason run, and I've been collecting, going forward. Same thing with Miles. I'm currently focused on completing all of the Miles Morales Spider-Man series. So he has the fourth one, just issue 42 of the current series, is the final issue in that run, and then they're going to be rebooting that series. So I'm going back. He has 3 other series prior to this one that I'm trying to complete, I'm going to work backwards at some point with Amazing Spider-Man and try to complete that. But obviously, any of the 1 through 100s are, and some of the other key books are very expensive. So I'm in no rush to say I need to have those done in a certain period of time. I'm really focused on some of the inexpensive books right now, and then if I eventually have the money to do that, the full Amazing Spider-Man run, then I'll certainly work on it. But
I was
who
going to
knows?
say, you got to ask Matt Woods to take you to some garage sales.
Yes.
Yeah, I asked that question because one thing I'm kind of, as I've said, I'm kind of whittling down my collection right now from the other end of it as far as what I'm purchasing. It's kind of like I've been looking at it like, okay, these books are going to, and maybe this is new father talk, I don't know. These books are going to outlast me. They've obviously outlasted their prior owners and whatnot. Is this something that my son, and if he has any brothers and sisters in the future, can appreciate, if not for anything, but then just to say, okay, well, you know here's an investment type of thing.
Right.
Like, you know especially the way that this kind of collector's market was, I don't want to say has been. There's been points I was like, yeah, maybe I should look into selling my X-Men one. It's at a pretty high amount now, and my mindset always kind of gone back to, it was like, well, this is going to be my son's at some point. So it's not really my investment at this point to sell. But I don't know. That was just kind of like my sense looking at my PC.
Yeah, and I'm still trying to find my focus. Obviously, like Spider-Man's my guy. He's the character I'll collect. But I'm, because of YouTube and other channels, there are books that I probably would not be on my radar that I pick up, and so I'm still in this kind of, I haven't fully nailed down my collecting focus, because I am picking up probably a good amount of books every week at the LCS, and that's probably where I need to cut back on and not
Yeah,
pick up so many of, because so and so recommended it, I picked it up, and then maybe save some of that money or use some of that money to pick up some of the older issues.
yeah,
Um,
and I
yeah,
can
so
tell you,
that's
I can tell you to that end, Marvel Unlimited has been a godsend to me. It's because
yeah,
I
I
used
use it
to,
too.
yeah,
Yep, yep,
I used to be like, let me get every single one of the Spider-Man books, every single one of the Avengers books, and at a certain point, I started Avengers right before they blew up with Bendis, so it went from being, I think, almost overnight one book to like 8 books, and then that's when I knew, it was like, all right, I got to kind of curb my collection a little bit. I just wanted to welcome, of course, Comic Journey joined us as well. But we've been on for almost an hour and a half at this point, an hour and 15. I rounded up a lot. That's what I do. So I'm going to open up to the chat one more time. Do we have any other questions for Mr. Brian LCS? Oh, Comic Journey. Sell your collection for the quadrillions and buy some real estate with that money. Your kids will be very appreciative of that. Keep only the stuff that really means something to you. Yeah, those are good words to live by too. And that's kind of what I'm kind of working through as well. I mean, for me, I know it's I'd love to have a complete run of the first volume of Uncanny. I have a good amount of those, but The stuff I don't have is the stuff that is big bucks right now. So
Right.
not
Yeah.
will. Yes, it's kind of. I look at it as it's not an active search. It's like maybe I'll be lucky and find it in a garage or something.
Yeah, I'm getting to the point where if I don't plan on reading it, I shouldn't be buying it, right?
Yeah,
Because there's books that I was collecting Something is Killing the Children and House of Slaughter, but I had never read those books, and so I stopped picking them up, and I got rid of those books because they were just going to collect dust in my they were going to sit in a long box. I wasn't planning on reading them, and I said, well, why did I buy these? Because I got kind of suckered in, like, well, it's the hot book and you need to pick it up, and so I'm trying to avoid that and only pick up things that I'm reading so that I can enjoy, and that have a meaning. Why I want to keep them. There's some limited series that I've read, and then I read the series and I'm like, wow, that really wasn't very good, and so then I might give those books away or try to sell them or do something with them. So
yeah,
I'm still trying to find the focus, but I'm trying to get there.
yeah. You'll get there. You'll get there. Well, with that, I don't see any other questions in the chat, but I do want to end with this. I don't know if I've ever said this to you before, Brian. I'm very happy that Brian was one of my first volunteers for 7 Minute Stories. Not only because I'm a fan of his channel, of course, and a lot of stuff that he does. Naman had a question that came in. I'll hit it there in a second. But, when I was, this is very much, I think, a learning experience. I think for all of us, anybody who started a YouTube channel, I think everybody here
Oh yeah.
pretty much has. That your first video is like, you barely get it off the ground, and somehow you kind of figure things out. And without Brian's help, advice, and assistance, I wouldn't have figured out how to do things like live shows. So really, this show exists because of Brian.
Yeah, I remember you reaching out, and I was trying to give you some help with StreamYard, and
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
No, and that's the great thing about the comic book community, because I've reached out when I started. I reached out to people, and they helped me. They helped me along the way. So I think that's the one of the great things about the community. Like, I reached out to Reggie Collects about the Comic Book Community Awards, and I figured, he's not going to get back to me. He got back to me within hours, and had a lot of suggestions and helped. So he helped, and then I reached out. Had such a great experience reaching out to Reggie that I started to reach out to many others, and got a lot of feedback about the Comic Book Community Award. So um, it was a pleasant surprise. And so now, if anybody reaches out to me, I certainly always want to make sure that I'm paying it forward, and helping any way that I can. So.
and I like that you said that it's reaching out, and that's something I found too. And just like you said, we have a great community. It's because we're made up of all great people.
Well, maybe except for Comic Journey, but everybody else is pretty good.
He said it, man. I didn't. Comic Book Worm has our. I'll make this the last question of the night because you've been very patient here. Are you still selling comic books on eBay?
So I probably have a handful, 5 or 6 listings on eBay with comics. I did at one point probably have 400 or 500 listings. Most of the books I've sold, or if I haven't sold them, I pulled them down. And I actually, gearing up for New York City Comic Con, I wanted to have a little extra spending money. So I recently sold. Trying to think, it was probably like 2 long boxes and a short box, just in bulk.
Wow.
Put them up on Facebook Marketplace. Some guy came by, $150 cash, and got rid of the books. I mean, most of them were incomplete and just kind of random books. So I was glad to free up the space and have some additional cash in the pocket to be able to spend at New York City Comic Con. So yeah, I'm pretty much out of the selling of books, other than if I happen to buy a mystery box and get some books, and books that I wouldn't keep, or win a prize. And but most of the stuff I'm giving back to the community now, like in giveaways and things like that. So um yeah, so I really don't have a lot more to to sell at this point.
At this point, right? That's the key
Yeah.
word at this point. Well, Brian, I want to thank you for being on the show tonight. Again, I think everybody here follows you, but you could follow if you don't know where to find Brian LCS on YouTube. Great show. He's very consistent as well. And I'll say this too: following Brian has saved me a lot of money on buying Spider-Man.
Yeah, right. Well, and that's how I read a lot of books. I'll watch somebody else's review, and then I'll get the synopsis of the story, and then I'm like, all right, well, I don't need to buy the book. I don't need to read it now.
Yeah. So I'll say this though: I didn't watch your review of Amazing Spider-Man #10 just because I think just from your introduction, because I think you started, correct me if I'm wrong, by saying like something like this is probably like the most interesting Spider-Man book in the past, whatever decade or so. Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna wait because I'll pick up a copy of that and read it myself.
I think you'll enjoy it. Yeah,
Hopefully,
I was surprised because coming off the previous Hellfire Gala tie-in, I thought this was going to be this was a Judgment Day tie-in, and I really didn't have high hopes, but the book blew me away. So,
yeah, well, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, Comic Journey, we are live, but we're going home now.
Yeah.
Well, we are home. We're going off.
We're getting off YouTube.
Yes. But thank you again, Brian. I appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody here for coming in and checking out our little show here and asking questions. Of course, I'm always looking for people to be a guest on 7-Minute Stories. So if you want to be a guest, you don't even need to have your own YouTube channel. I can just ask you questions about your collection. That's the beauty of it. Shoot me a quick DM on Instagram, and we'll make it work from there.
Yeah, very, very enjoyable. I mean, I can't even believe we've been on for an hour and a half.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. Maybe I'll wait until the spring, just until maybe some finances spring up. I think I'm going to start getting T-shirts made up for everybody who's on. It'll say something like, "I lasted 7 minutes with Phil." See, we always got to go there. Somebody somewhere is shaking their head. And of course, this is the first time I'm actually streaming to LinkedIn as well. So I could see like 6 months from now, we were going to hire you from this, position that would have been life-changing. But, you made that little joke at the end. We didn't like that. But thanks again, everybody. Have a great night.
Yeah.
Peace, love, and comics.